Welcome to CanadianYouthWorker.com, everybody. My name is Jason Frizzell. I'm back with live on-air interviews with Canadian youth workers all across our country. Today, I'm excited because I get to interview a new friend of mine, Miss Sarah Buckham, and she is actually calling me from her car, so this is going to be fun. Sarah, welcome, and why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, what you do in youth ministry, and that whole jazz.
Sure, yeah. So I'm excited about this. So I am originally from BC, from Abbotsford, BC, but now I live in Calgary, which is really fun.
Yep.
Just into the winters, but coping. It's a beautiful city. Um, Grew up actually in the Catholic Church and in youth groups, in a program called Life Teen, which is popular in the Catholic Church, which was kind of fun. And yeah, in high school, got a lot of opportunities to help out with my youth group. And kind of be a leader. And then in grade 11, I started being an actual leader, and then that led to being the paid leader, and it just kind of snowballed from there. And I grew up in a small church community. We had maybe 500 to 800 people that attended over a weekend, so you got to know everyone really, really closely. So it was a community that I was really close to. And then yeah, I started working for Trinity Western University as an admissions counselor, and was being an admissions counselor and a youth minister at the same time, which was a little bit crazy route, but it was super fun because I got to see students at high schools, at fairs on the week, and then chat with them on the weekend at youth groups. So it was actually really fun. Yeah, so now I live in Calgary and I recruit. I had to leave my home church and my youth group behind. Did a little bit of retreat ministry while I was in Calgary, which has been kind of fun. But now, full-time, I work for Trinity. I go to high schools and career fairs and churches and just promote Christian higher education, and the impact it had an amazing significance in my life. So it's been really cool being able to promote Christian higher education because it transformed my life so much that being able to share with others has been really fun and exciting. So that's what I do now, full time.
Very cool.
Mm-hmm.
Very cool. Very cool. Very awesome. So I've sent you some questions that are kind of pointed and kind of fun, but this will be good. So let's just dive into this first one here.
Mm-hmm.
I grew up a Baptist boy. You grew up Catholic.
Mm-hmm.
We were probably told at some point in time along our life that Catholics and Protestants should never get along. So let's get to it. How can Catholics and Protestants in today, 2014, in our Canadian landscape, what are you seeing? How can we work better together? We're all on the same team. We're all part of the same family of God. We all believe who Jesus is. We're saved by grace, not by works, not by anything like that. We agree on all those things. Where do you see some growth points for us and how we can work together more effectively?
So I grew up in a little bit of a different situation where I grew up in a real Bible Belt, and so I, until our youth group was formed, which didn't happen until kind of early on in high school, there was no youth group in the Catholic Church for me growing up, and so I went to a lot of different denominations and hung out with them and loved them. It was so fun, and so it kind of shaped me a little bit in the sense of I grew up realizing that Catholics and Christians of different denominations have more in common than we do not. And I find that very beautiful. I think that should be shared more and be praised more. I think that's awesome that we have more in common than we do not. And I think it's really cool when like youth groups can come together and find common ground, because in the end, like all youth workers, in my experience, all I wanted was for my kids to know Christ, like for them to come into a relationship with Christ and to be able to turn to him in their daily lives. Like that's all I really wanted in the end. And I think in the end that's what most of our churches want. We want them to come to know Christ in a different way, and a personal way, and then the details are different, but that's fine, you know. And I think if we can acknowledge that commonality first, I think that brings us together in a much deeper way than you'd even imagine. And I think we can learn a lot from each other too. I grew up in the Catholic Church, but it wasn't until I went to Trinity that I'd ever raised my hands in worship. And now that's like close to my heart. And worship is such a beautiful way in which I pray. And I learned that from my evangelical brothers and sisters. It wasn't in the Catholic Church. And, you know, and in conversation, we were able to learn things from each other. And so I think being open and not afraid to talk about what we believe in with each other is a beautiful way to start. Being open to that conversation is so important.
Yeah, very cool. I'm hearing two things that I'm picking up that I think are brilliant. I think the first thing that you said is focusing on the similarities. Again, if we all say we are about loving Jesus, focusing in on him and who he is, and you'll find Catholic theology on who Jesus is and Protestant theology on who Jesus is virtually identical, if not exactly identical. And so focusing on that, I love that. And I love the other thing that you're saying about the details are different. So my next sort of follow-up question, I didn't send this one to you, is what do you think about room for diversity from a theological perspective? Like, where does diversity fit in God's family from where you're seeing it, having this foot in sort of both worlds? How can we celebrate that better? Instead of using it as something that tells us we can't get along, how can we celebrate it better to say, hey, look at the beautiful tapestry and uniqueness that is God's family?
Well, there's two sides of it, I think. I think truth is truth. And as long as we're striving to get to know Christ in the ways that he's directed us, then we're going to find that commonality. But something I really love that was really ingrained into me, especially in the Catholic faith, is that there's many parts of the body. If the church is the body, there's many parts. I mean, there's hands, there's feet, there's a lot of different elements that make up one giant church. In the Catholic world, I mean, we're all about the universal church. You know, there's many different aspects that make up one beautiful church, and how I've grown up seeing it is, you know, my evangelical brothers and sisters, they worship like that connects really well with who I am. Each church does things a little bit different, and even in the Catholic Church, each Mass will do it a little bit different. You might have one church that does more praise and worship, and one that only has an organ, and they're very concerned about just the organ, you know, or they'll have a priest that preaches one way or a priest that preaches the other way, and I think we've all been made so differently and so uniquely that it's okay to have differences and still all be using our differences towards God's greater glory, to live the gospel. I mean, you can, if worship is your thing, worship. If learning, if biblical studies, if theology is, you know, your gift, use it. I mean, there's so many different things that God has given us to promote his glory that it'd be a shame to get stuck in one way and not know about or be open to the rest of them. I think there's a lot of churches that specialize in mission, and we need that, you know, and there's a lot of churches that specialize in whatever, and we need that. We need all the hands and feet to be doing their own thing so that the whole body is healthy.
Yeah.
That makes sense?
No, that makes brilliant sense. I love how you drew that back to Scripture and rooted us in this concept that Paul wrote about us functioning like a literal body, the body of Christ. We're always referred to that in Scripture. That's awesome and amazing. And I think you're right. If we can celebrate the uniquenesses, I think about it in terms of food because I really like food. And so you know, growing up in a German Baptist background, we had meat and potatoes and everything was gravy, right? Meat, potatoes, and gravy. And when you had all those things, that was awesome. But then, you know, when I moved to a big city, I started trying different foods and different ethnic cuisines in particular, different spices, different preparation methods. And I got to celebrate a lot of really great, cool, unique dishes in that way. And I think it's the same when we talk about theology. There's a lot of great stuff that's pointing people to who Jesus is. It's not saying that there's multiple ways, including Jesus. We're saying there's multiple ways to Jesus.
Right.
Jesus is the way to who God the Father is. And so I
Mhm.
think that's great. So I love that. So
Mhm.
quickly, second question, we'll shift gears here because you are in the post-secondary education, higher education, Christian education
Yeah.
field. What excites you most about being in that type of environment at Trinity Western, but just in the realm of higher education that is Christian focused?
Yeah. I think for me, it's because of my background. I mean, I went to university, average student, like
Hmm.
really average, C's and B's, not really getting a degree because I knew, well, my parents really wanted me to,
Right.
and I knew I'd probably get a better job if I got one, but had like no interest in a certain program in particular, just kind of went. And at the same time, my faith, I mean, I grew up in youth groups, I was a youth minister, but my personal relationship with Christ at that time was really on the fence. Like, it was a make or break at time. I didn't even really realize it then. Like, looking back in hindsight, I can see that now. I went to a Christian school growing up, but hadn't really yet made my faith my own, and hadn't been in a community where, challenging that was a thing. They just kind of, we just go with the flow, and that's what we do. Um, and so for me, going to Christian higher education was a time where people would ask me questions in a safe environment. It made me challenge who I am and my identity as a Christian, and how I was going to apply it to the rest of my life. I mean, it really made me ask those big questions in a place that was really safe. And I can say that now looking back. At the time, I mean, you're going through so many different things, you can't even piece it together. But now, working on the other side of it,
Hmm.
telling people about, all the great programs we have and stuff, in the back of my head is more of the thought of, yeah, you'll get a piece of paper, but it'll also probably change your life. And that's what gets me excited, you know. And especially for youth workers, like, we're just tagging along stuff that you've already done. You've already done a lot of the groundwork, and now we want to make sure that they can keep asking those big questions and have a transformative experience, and also get a degree at the same time. And I think that's what really excites me, is that it changed my life, and I know it's constantly changing other people's lives at Christian schools.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Very cool. And I love that. I think you wouldn't get a lot of argument from any youth worker out there. We're about life change and creating environments that are going to help foster that and sustain that and grow that and mature that each and every step along the journey towards becoming an adult and
Mm-hmm.
living into life, right? So that's great. I love that. Third final question before I get to my favorite part, which is the Great Canadian Youth Worker Quiz. We're going to have a lot of fun with that. Third final question. What do today's youth workers need to know about post-secondary education options, or just post-secondary education from your
Mm-hmm.
perspective as a recruiter, to help let their teens and families know in their local context?
Yeah, I think number one is that there are so many options. Like, I
Hmm.
think more options than we even think about. When I was in high school, to be honest, I went to Trinity because my friends went there. I didn't even know there was other Christian schools out there. And I think there's 34 Christian schools in Canadian higher Christian education. Like 34, I didn't even know.
Hmm.
So that's really important. There's so many options for them to keep going in their faith with a degree. And I think what I touched on before, like, you can get a piece of paper pretty much anywhere, but what's unique to Christian higher education is that they will be transformed.
Hmm.
They're going to have a chance to ask those big questions. Who am I? How do I want to live the rest of my life? How do I apply my faith to whatever industry I'm going into?
Hmm.
Those identity questions, they can ask those in a really great community, and they have a community of fellowship that is, I mean, amazing. They're going to have that community
Hmm.
that they can look back on, they can go back to, they can rely on, they can feel supported by.
Hmm.
And I think that is so um, it's just, um, what's the word? it's not even recognized as being important these days, community, at a lot of the big schools. You go to a Christian school and they're going to feel like they are known and they can be known, and they can live their faith while studying engineering or business, things that they would really do in the real world. And I think that's really important to have real world Christians. We need more people in the marketplace that are living their faith day to day, and you can really find that experiential identity knowledge at a Christian school, at a post-secondary Christian school.
No, that's great. One of my cousins actually, who just recently graduated a couple years ago, Braden, he's at a local college that I won't name here because it's not the one that you're representing in this interview, but he's at a local college here working on a business management type degree, business administration. And I know that he has found great value in working through issues of faith alongside of getting his degree in order. We also know that maybe not everybody's going to see the value in a post-secondary Christian institution, but yeah, great message and great reminder that there is value, there are options, and parents and teams just need to do their research. I know that you are part of putting on this inter-school fair that's doing this tour all through Canada. Can you give us some date information on when that's taking place?
Yeah, so it's a part of the NACAP circuit, and it's tonight, which is really fun. It's from 7 to 9 at Haysboro Community Center, and there's about 13 schools from all over Canada. Schools travel all the way from Ontario, BC, and all in between to come out just so that you guys can get to know them and see what they offer. Every school, which is also kind of cool, offers something very different. It's not a one-size-fits-all by any means. And so it's, choose your best fit.
Very cool. And that's happening in Calgary tonight.
In Calgary, yeah, at Haysboro Community Center.
Any other dates that you can tell us off the top of your head and other places?
This is kind of it for Western Canada. We're right at the end of the tour, unfortunately.
Okay.
But, I mean, there's lots of avenue for getting information if students want. We have local recruiters. We have ones that come out here all the time. So if students are interested, all they have to do is ask. We're available.
Awesome. Kids, do your research. That's what I'm hearing. Very cool. Okay. My favorite part, Great Canadian Youth Worker Quiz. I've got some questions here. I'm going to just toss them at you rapid fire. They're all Canadian related. It's going to be fun.
Oh, no.
Just, yeah, have a little fun. Let's put it that way. So I'm going to put you back on the screen here. It's just going to be you. We're going to film your reactions and everything.
Oh, boy.
Ready?
I don't know, but let's do it.
Okay. Who's your favorite Canadian singer?
Oh, Alanis Morissette.
Okay. Whoa. That's good. Okay. Favorite drink on a cold Canadian winter day?
Oh, Earl Grey tea.
Earl Grey tea. No flavor, just Earl Grey tea.
Oh, it's just comfort in a cup.
Milk, sugar, just plain, straight up?
No, the Irish way. You gotta drink a black.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very good. Okay, question number 4. Favorite part about meeting someone who is Canadian?
Ooh, talking about how great poutine is.
Oh, well done. That was off the
That's a
top of your head.
legitimate thing.
Well done. Okay, last and final question. You're 3 for 3 so far. What is the Canadian national sport?
Oh, lacrosse.
Whoa! Well done. Well done, Sarah. That was awesome. Thank you so much for sharing pieces of your story with us today, participating in my wacky adventure known as the Great Canadian Quiz, and just letting us know that there are great options for post-secondary initiatives for kids here in our country that are awesome and worth taking advantage of, especially when we consider the concepts of like hemorrhaging faith and kids are leaving the church and yada, yada, yada. Why not get them connected into an environment that's going to push them, challenge them, while shaping them also for a vocation as well as spiritually. So there you have it, folks. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for being a part of the Canadian Youth Worker community and network. And Sarah, we think you're awesome.
Thanks for having me.
Take care, everybody. See you next time.